Kupo. Kupo.
Why does he keep saying Kupo? You little gremlin.
That way.
I can still see him. Now how did you find a guitar down there?
Now that's comedy.
So I know it's a normal thing in Final Fantasy to do this, but it's kinda weird seeing a big JRPG do a numbered sequel, especially with how the first ended. And that video is over there, Kupo.
Kupo.
FF13 x 2 is the sequel to the controversial Final Fantasy game, where Square Enix planned a big universe with the 13 series being the main flagship games. But after the first one, a lot of people were put off by it. Now I don't know if this is surprising or not, but I kinda like this game. Like, really like it. Like, I've been thinking about it non-stop since beating it like it. Well, maybe not the story. Okay, it's complicated. Released in 2012, it takes place 3 years after the first game, where the big thing is that lightning has somehow disappeared from the world, and only Serah, her sister, remembers her, because the others kinda think she died and believe that Serah is crazy by not accepting her death and the truth. Yeah, great friends, I know. Now after you see the footage, you might be wondering, wait, why does this one look more old-fashioned than the first game? Well, that was on the PC, and for this one I actually bought it on PS3. Yeah, I can finally chuck out my Wii U. Now I only did this because if you look it up, this game seems to have a really bad PC port, like really bad. So hence why we got all this framey goodness, or lack of. Also, to get back to why I think the story is kinda, well, it's got time traveling. A whole heap and lot of it, but we'll get to that. The game actually starts out with Lightning battling a purple hair man called Caius. And yeah, that sure is a final boss battle design. Now interestingly, you do get pretty much the exact same combat from the first game, but since this came out in the middle of the PS3 heyday, this game has quick time events. So many QTEs. Although I kinda like them here. For one, the game tells you when they're coming so you can quickly grab that controller while you watch the beautiful cutscenes. Secondly, most of the cutscenes actually have new animations for every option you choose, and I'll get to that later. Now while the two battle in this otherworldly place called Valhalla, as you wonder just what the actual heck is happening, a dude appears from a portal, and Lightning is like, oh my goodness, you can travel anywhere. Here, take this bow and give it to my sister. Both of you can change the future. Yeah, sure, whatever you say, extremely hot lady. So his name is Null, and he jumps through the gate, which somehow causes him to ride a meteor that's gonna crash into the main world. But don't worry about that, because it's time for a new waifu protagonist. So this is Serah, Lightning's sister, we saved in the first game, with a brand new outfit. Look, I'm onto you, Square Enix. I know you only did this so you could release a brand new figure for each outfit for the weebs to buy. Well, joke's on you. I'm broke. Support me on Patreon. Anyway, yes, I think this was a twist, because I'm not too sure on the fan reaction at the time, but with the box art and the intro, I guess it might be surprising that you play as Serah for the majority of the game. Was it a bait and switch? Was I angry? Not really. I mean, she is voiced by Laura Bailey, and I really don't mind it. What I did mind, however, was that the costume DLC are paid on PS3, and you have things like Mass Effect and Assassin's Creed. Like seriously, why do you do this to me, Square? Now we exit outside and find that, oh no, we have a bug infestation. And with Null's help, we are able to defeat the monsters. So we then travel with him and with our trusty bow, which turns into this thing called a Moogle. God, he's so round. And then we make our way to the meteorite site, which turns out to be this sort of gate thing. Null then tells us that he's from 700 years in the future and is the last human alive, and so he's traveled back in time to change the future and save humanity, or so he says. At the same time, Serah also gets these visions of the future and the ability to travel through those gates. These two abilities were gifts from the goddess Etro. Remember that name? She is a big part of the story. Anyway, the rest of the gang are suspicious of Null, but he tries to explain the situation. It seems like someone is messing up the timeline, with things like these monsters just appearing as paradoxes. So we have to find these things called artifacts.
Artifacts?
Which are pretty much keys to unlock the gates, and hopefully that fixes up all the time nonsense. Now why is Serah believing this handsome stranger? Well, he tells her that he met Lightning, and that the Moogle is a good luck charm from her sister. Because remember, this takes place 3 years after the first game, and for some strange reason, even though we and Serah saw a happy ending, something removed Lightning from the the timeline, causing her to fight Caius in Valhalla. So in this new timeline, everyone didn't see Lightning survive and think she died in the final battle, and that Serah is just trying to hide the loss of her sister. However, her fiance Snow, he believes her and sets off himself to find Lightning, as he wants her blessing before marrying Serah. So yeah, it was kinda a shock with this whole setup. With such a nicely wrapped up ending, I honestly could think of so many ways they could do a sequel, but yeah, time traveling with Lightning Thanos snap, I really wasn't expecting that. Which then makes Noel saying he met her a big deal for Serah, who had to live for 3 years with everyone telling her Lightning is dead. Just move on. So the focus of the story is Serah wanting to see her sister in Valhalla and Noel trying to change the future. And just an aside, I really do wonder if the writer played Steins Gate before this one, just seems a bit suspicious. Now then, the actual gameplay is when you reach a gate, the two use an artifact and it opens up a place to visit in a certain time period, with the first one being the Brescia Ruins 5 AF, or 5 years after the fall of Cocoon. Here they see things like monsters from other timelines that don't fully form, and this creature. Why are you so weird?
Psst. Hey there. Wanna see what I got? Just kidding!
So Chocolina is the Anna of the game, as in no matter what time period you travel to, she's there. Take your money for goods and services. Anyway, here is where I'll get into the actual combat, because I guess this is surprising. I really love the combat in this game. But wait a minute, isn't this the exact same as the first game? Well, mostly yeah, but I really do think they actually explain it better in this game, and I could understand the more technical side of the paradigms, or maybe I just finally got used to JRPGs after all these years. So I explained in the other video, but I'll go over it briefly for anyone who hasn't seen that. You get an ATB bar, wait for it to fill, then queue attacks yourself or let the computer do it for you. You want to attack to get this stagger bar filled up to be able to do massive damage to enemies. So yes, you have the paradigms, where you can pick what class you and Noel are, to then shift mid-battle to stagger the enemy when the bar gets filled. And you also have the Crystarium, which upgrades like before, but a bit more streamlined. Now as a recommendation, I would make Serah a Saboteur and Noel Synergist for buffs and debuffs. But then the big thing about this game is Pokemon. I mean monster catching. As yes, with a random chance you can get a monster to use as a third member of your party. Yeah, no more of that split party thing. Serah and Noel are constant throughout the game, with the monster you pick as backup. And I love this system so much. You actually can spend more time with constant party members, and the ones you choose to add are just monsters. And each monster is a role type. You also can level them up to either eating monster parts or eating other monsters.
Oh god, no, don't eat the cat.
And yes, you can name them. After that, you pick 3 to equip on your paradigm pack, and you can customize whether you want them on which setup with the 2 humans. So if you want a dedicated healer, you can do that, or if you want a dedicated heavy attack paradigm to go all out when the enemy is staggering, you can do that too. It offers so much more power to the player, as you can guarantee that setup will be used for a while. Also yes, you can control Noel if you choose to, but you can't control the other members of the party while battling. And gone are those summon things that honestly just felt tacked on to the first game. It really does feel like they listened to all the criticism and improved on this so much, with a new mechanic to match. I just can't get over how much I love the combat in this game. Now then to the worlds themselves. Well, in the Brescia Ruins, you kinda just run around understanding what the paradox problem is. As usually, it causes something to go wrong and you have to fix it to correct the world. As for example, they actually took the criticism of the linearity and added so many split parts. But not just that, as many of the worlds are open big areas with winding paths, secret areas you can only get to by riding this horrifying chocobo, and other mechanics like only walk in the spotlight to avoid enemies. And to the monsters themselves, well, this time you actually don't see them in the overworld at first. It's an interesting system where you get random encounters while enemies jump scare you. But you then get a timer to run away and avoid battle. However, if the enemies are strong, they will chase you down. And this was the worst thing in this world in particular, because you barely get any experience from them, but they appear like every 30 seconds. Please stop, I'm seriously so tired of this. It's just an interesting mix of random encounters and other dungeon crawling mechanics. Also, you may be wondering, wait, does the Moogle actually do anything apart from be the bow of Serah? Well, yes he does. You can fling that thing away to get prizes and items. And if there are any invisible items, he can also reveal them with the R1 button. Also, by the way, this game, I guess being in that era, 13.2 has so many collectibles, and they do quite a few things, like finding these fragments in the world, and if you talk to this lady, you can upgrade certain ones, like more money when you sell things, or even a better jump. Now, in most worlds, there actually are more than one gate, and here you get to choose which path you pick. As in the gate, it's a place called Historia Crux, which shows you the world branches, even including a timeline when you fix things. I'm telling you, they really did play Steins Gate before this. Now, at the same time going through the worlds, we come across this pair, that Caius guy and a girl called Yul, who is a seer of sorts, but I'll get to that in the spoiler bit. So then I guess it was my choice, but I think I went into the wrong gate and ended up having to fight this giant flan in a long grindy battle, but because I actually understood and loved the gameplay, I managed to win, meaning I was kinda over-leveled for a lot of the early game, and yes, he is Snow, with no lightning thankfully to punch him. But seriously, what's with the hair, dude? So somehow he managed to go through his own portal to find lightning, and in this world and time, he finds out that the flan is actually melting the crystal holding the cocoon, meaning it's gonna collapse at some point. Okay, so that's Snow. But wait, if it's a sequel, where are the other party members? Well, you do see characters like Hope, older now, and pretty much the super smart guy who's trying to fix the cocoon problem, as even though it's being held up, it's kinda hard to live there in its current state. Now, Vanille and Fang are still in the crystal, so then the final member, you must be wondering, gee, where is Saz and his son? Oh, he's there, in the DLC, which cost money in the PS3 version. So yeah, one thing I will say is that it kind of brings up the money-making side of Square, where before they milked FF15, they would do things like this: paid DLC for literally the second character you meet in the first game, or paid outfits or items. But for the most part, the game just really revolves around Serah, Lightning, Noel, Caius, and Yul, with Hope on the side as well. The other characters barely get any screen time at all, which I guess was them just addressing people not liking the cast. Anyway, this leads me to another thing this game added, which was more, let's say, fun moments. As a big criticism of the first game was its poor pacing and tone. Well, this game is like, oh, who cares? Let's have a full casino with gambling and a racing minigame. And let's also have these Professor Layton style puzzles where you have to step on the right tiles. But also let's add these crazy things called live triggers, where at many points the game will ask you a choice and you'll get voice dialogue depending on your answer. And honestly, they don't really affect the story that much. You might lose lore if you pick the wrong answer. Also note that once you pick it, you can't redo it unless you reset the whole world, which is an option in the Historia Crux. Now, the thing about these live triggers is that there are a lot of them, and most of them have a funny answer, like
And he's
so.
not just kind, he's reliable too. He always means what he says, and you can totally trust his word. I mean, he's my hero. Oh, and I know you're thinking no one's perfect. I know he has his flaws, and sometimes he makes me so mad, but I love that about him too. No other guy can compare to my hero.
I get it. Can we just get back to...
He has this amazing body, and his face is so handsome.
Yeah, thanks for all the detail.
And I guess it was to force fans to enjoy the funny choices, but if you want extra items for your monsters to dress up with, you have to pick as many funny answers as possible for every chapter. It's kinda a weird way to implement, but I guess this game really wants you to know it's not as serious as the first one. And before I get to the spoilers, I wanna say, please turn off your brain before playing this. I mean seriously, when you have time travel, you have to do it right. And this game, well, it really does try. But it's kind of amusing because I really like time travel plots, but I think this is the weakest part of the whole game, because in essence, all you do with it is go to a world, see a paradox, fix it, and move on. The bits I mainly did like were with Caius and Yul, and so let's get to that, shall we? Now the deal with Yul is that she gets glimpses of the future, but each vision she loses part of her lifespan. Now in every era when a Yul dies, another one gets born who looks exactly the same. And Caius himself was chosen by Etro to be Yul's guardian, as he is given the heart of chaos which grants him immortality, and I believe it's Etro's heart too. However, due to her peeking into the future a bit too much, she dies in every life. Not of her own will, and he has to witness seeing the person he loves die countless times over centuries, which then leads to his grand evil goal. He himself created the paradoxes on the timeline to eventually lead him to be able to kill Etro, allowing the chaos of an unseen realm to enter, stopping the flow of time, meaning she will never see any more futures and can live on happily. So yeah, kinda different to a take over the world plot, just a dude simping for his love, and I appreciate how simple and different the story is. His goal is there, and he's doing everything he can for it. Now as to this chaos thing, well, it's an unknown entity, and think of it like the darkness in Kingdom Hearts.
The darkness.
This was the thing that actually grabbed Lightning after the end of FF13 removing her from this world and people's memories. This was only because Etro was the one who awoke the gang from the crystal states, as thanks for, you know, saving Cocoon. So yeah, but the goddess trying to do something good, she caused this whole mess. So then in Valhalla, Lightning was her knight, protecting her from Caius in a never-ending battle. Now Noel himself was meant to be the next guardian in line to protect Yul. However, before that could happen, Caius left on his journey to stop Etro, meaning Noel saw his time period's Yul die, and was left as the only human alive on Earth. In his despair of giving up, Etro rescued him, because she loves to do that, from that time period, sending Noel to Lightning at the start of the game. Now as to why humanity died, well, all things point to the Cocoon falling, 500 years after the end of FF13, and this causes internal conflict with the humans, leading them to be wiped out 200 years later. Hope himself sets about creating a new Cocoon that can float itself to house humanity before the other one collapses. And throughout all this, you go to many worlds like Grand Pulse back in the day, where for some reason they can change the weather with this machine, to this cyberpunk-like place where Hope created an artificial foul sea named Adam, who of course eventually rises up iRobot style, turning people into zombies and killing Hope. Also quickly I'll mention, Hope has an assistant, love interest, weirdo. I mean, she does so many suspicious things, but it's never really answered if she's evil. Anyway, after going into the future and learning of Hope's death, Serah speaks to Hope in the past, somehow, and is like, oi, don't build this thing, leading to the floating cocoon idea. Yes, this is all confusing, but trust me, don't think too deeply into the workings of time travel, and it should make sense. Should. Also, this whole cyberpunk robot boss was pretty cool because technically you could keep fighting it forever if you don't pick the right choice. I'll go into the choices later, but it's crazy seeing how many cutscenes, all voiced, that this game has for every option. It's actually amazing. Now, while I'm here, I will say that there are many guides on which monsters are the best to get, and from my experience, you really need a good medic and commando. And for me, it was this guy with the ambulance healing and a chocobo, or this metal warship which does insane damage mid-late game. One thing about 13.2 is that it's actually really hard trying to get the monsters you need, as even finding the rare ones doesn't guarantee you're going to get them at the results screen, so you have to either be really lucky, grind a monster, or spend hours trying to get the best one. But in the end I settled on these three, and after the final battle, I owe them my life, I love them so much. So Serah and Noel finally head to the point where the cocoon is about to collapse, in this insane difficult puzzle place. Also, by the way, thank you Square for putting the strongest monster in the game right before the end of the dungeon. Thanks, I hate it. Anyway, they go through and try to stop Caius from bringing down the artificial cocoon, with the help of Saz. Yeah, I guess if you don't buy the DLC, his few lines here as a pilot are all you're gonna get. Now I will say, I was underleveled at this point, but I don't know if it was because I managed to work out the combat before each of the final boss phases. I managed to do it on the first try, till I fought 3 Bahamut's and that one-shot you, but on the 4th try, I did it. My fingers going crazy with the paradigm shift. I'm completely serious, this was one of my favourite moments in recent times in a video game. I still can't believe I managed to beat him. So yeah, we defeat Caius, who in a fake choice cutscene, which actually freaked me out because I misclicked, but the answer is the same. Noel is forced into killing him, meaning the heart of Etro is gone. So even though it seems like it's a happy ending, it definitely isn't, because Etro is technically now dead. And remember how Serah could see the future, like Yul? Well, after one final vision, she dies. Like, actually dies. Main protagonist dead.
I promise you, I vow never to let her come to harm.
And the chaos envelops the world with a to be continued. Really, Square? I know you want sales on the next game, but seriously, what an ending. I was expecting, you know, Snow and Lightning to come back all happy smiles, but nope. The game's just gonna pull the rug out from you, and I guess we'll have to see how it works out in the final game to the trilogy. But as to the ending itself, I really liked most of it. I mean, Caius himself was a great villain with a simple, understandable goal, and the final boss was one of my favorite fights ever, although the time travel mechanics are a bit iffy. Now, before I talk about other non-spoiler things, I have to also mention mention the other endings, because of course with time travel in a game, you get multiple endings. So the way you do this is with the post-game, you get an item which allows you to replay levels with harder bosses, and you have to pick a choice with many numerous endings. Like with that Atlas guy in the first world you go to, you're meant to weaken him with a switch before an easy battle, but if you fight him without that, you get an ending, and so on. It's actually crazy how many unique endings there are, and all the weird requirements for them. Although one of them you can get before the post-game, in a fit of despair, where Caius splits up Yul and Serah and kills them both. They awaken in a dream state, where it's like nothing has gone wrong, as she's back on the beach, where everything is happy, and yep, lightning is alive. If you then choose to stay in the dream, well yeah, that's the ending. And the other answer leads to Vanille and Fang giving a little spirit morale boost and freeing her from the dream, so I guess that's their cameo done. Alright, to the other bits about this game, and I guess the voice acting is actually really kinda good.
Anyway,
I mean, I mentioned in the other video how they like to reanimate the mouth flaps to match the language, but the improvement this game has over the other one is that there are so many NPCs, and they all are voiced. As when you pass someone, they cycle through a few lines of dialogue, then some characters you can just talk to about side quests or info on the area.
But I do know it's unlikely that it'll happen in my lifetime.
And yeah, if you've ever played a Japanese game dubbed, you will recognize a lot of these voices. Like, they seriously got the entire dubbing industry in this game or something. And I love this NPC thing because here you learn so much about the world, which is a better way than the data logs from the first game. The areas actually feel like they have life to them. Now, I mentioned before I was playing this on the PS3, which is kind of why the footage looks a little rough, because the PS3 has this HDMI blocker thing.
You'll have to excuse the image quality.
And not only that, but the frame rate will crawl at certain points. It's not unplayable at all, it's just that it's a bit hard to see this kind of thing in this day and age. But I mean, judging from the horrible reviews of the PC port, I think getting it on PS3 is worth it. At least it makes those quick time events feel nostalgic. But it's not all bad, as even the many cutscenes, the character models still look good. Square really were ahead of their time with the realistic anime model. Now then to the final bit of good thing about this game, and it's the music, because oh my goodness, how is this soundtrack able to sound god tier? I'm not joking when I say this is up there with my all-time favorite OSTs ever. It has a weird mix of synth, techno, orchestral, and so many others, feeling a bit experimental, but it's just amazing. I don't know how they improved it over the first one, and the final boss music is so hype-inducing. Seriously, 10 out of 10, I will be listening to this for years to come. So then let's go to a little negative thing about this game, and that would be the characters with Serah and Yul. I mean, they kind of felt a bit bland. Like Serah, her only goal and personality is to find lightning, then to save the world, but it's not bad character writing. She's just not that unique to many other JRPG characters. I did grow to like her and Yul as the game went on though. So then, with that all being said, is this game worth playing years later, and even getting it on PS3 since the PC version is busted? Well, to me personally, yes. There was something weirdly nostalgic about how this game was set out, with the brown, washed out colours, long loading times with trippy visuals, quick time events, but was then coupled with an addicting gameplay system that was so fun to work through, plus the type of worlds they showed off was stunning. I mean, you have ruins, wild lands with weather changes, cyberpunk with day and night versions, forests, and so many variations to them in the different time periods to see how they changed. The gameplay also is much easier to understand and quicker to master. The monster feature is amazing, music is god tier. I highly recommend this game. Like, this could even be in my top 10 games ever eventually. I really can't stop thinking about it. Now if you ask, well, do I have to play the first one to understand this? Yes and no. I mean, it does take place after it, but most of the characters don't even do much here. And there is a feature that details the whole first game's plot to catch you up to speed. At least for the combat and music, I would recommend at least trying this game. But just another warning, be careful on that PC port. Also, make sure you turn off that critical big brain for some of the story bits. You can understand it, just don't go looking too deeply at the time travel mechanics. Little tangent, but it really reminds me of the Tokyo Mirage Session game, where the story was... But the gameplay and music were amazing in that. But yeah, that was crazy. I really did not expect to love this game as much as I did, even more than the first one. And I'm actually hyped now to see where they go in the final game, amusingly called Lightning Returns Final Fantasy 13, because I guess 13.3 would have sounded dumb, eh, Square? So make sure you smash that subscribe button, because next time, it's fashion, baby.
Trojan, RamZaes, Magnum, Sheik.